We are back on Morning Line. Our guest with us this morning, Metro Councilman Steve Glover. Steve, good morning to you. Thanks again for joining us today.
All right, I'm going to try and not be so animated, Nick. But you know how challenging that is for me.
I know. You're kind of like me. You move and you talk. I apologize for that. It's a technical issue. It's not your fault. So, thanks again for coming on this morning and talking about where we stand on all this. Let me guess on this. I mean, are you good with this referendum, or would you prefer that instead of having to do this referendum and roll it all the way back, that you would say, hey, let's sit back down and revisit this and maybe not quite go with 34%? Can we find another way and do it maybe 15 to 20%, or are you just good with the referendum? Are you going to vote for it?
Well, so let me answer this. I don't typically tell anybody how I'm going to vote because I think that's just an American tradition. I vote every time. I try to never abstain on anything unless there's a conflict of interest. But every time the polls open, I wouldn't care if it's for dog catcher. I'm going to be voting. Do I wish that this is not where we are? Absolutely, I do. I mean, I'd be lying to you if I told you I didn't. But the thing that bothers me the most is I promise you, Nick, as late as last night, almost till midnight, I'm on the phone trying to figure out what are the legal options of what we can do. How can we adjust tax rates? What can we legally do in order to try and give some relief for folks? The scary part is we're sitting here, a couple of weeks from the 1st of October, and the property tax bills are at printers right now. It's happening as we speak. Those things are going to start going out in the mail. I don't know how you back this train off the tracks. I don't know how you do it. I'm praying that we can sit down and have legitimate conversations, and that we will come up with an answer that will be somewhere in the middle. I mean, that is my earnest prayer right there, that's what we can do, because there is not, given the circumstances of this, there is not a good outcome. There's not. So I'm hoping that smart heads can prevail. We will sit down and do what we should have done back in the spring. I just don't know if we can back it up, and I just don't know that, Nick. I mean, but you can rest assured I'm looking and trying to figure it out right now. I mean, you've known me for a long, long time. You know that I'm not going to let this thing just go. I'm going to dig in as hard as I can to figure it out.
Yeah, because I think they're saying if the referendum, goes to a special election, that might not be till December.
Right. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
By that
December
point,
the 5th
right.
is the date I'm here. But
yeah, if that's the case, then you're right. How do you put the toothpaste back in the tube?
I truly don't know, Nick. But I can promise you, I'm looking at every angle that is humanly possible, because I believe that I know people pretty well. I don't know really how anybody legitimately could go and vote and say, raise my taxes this high. That's what scares me the most. So even when I'm staring this thing straight in the face, and I understand that this can be horrific for us, I also understand that people at this point, at this very moment right now, have had it with this government spending every dime that we have, plus every dime we can dream of, plus every dime that we can raise property taxes on. So I think people have said enough is enough, and it's time to get off this roller coaster ride that we've been on for a lot of years here. It's pretty sad that we go through one of I think it may be our greatest economic boom in Nashville's history. And when we finish that and we come into this pandemic, we don't have enough money in our savings account to even make it really through the year. That's sad. And if the people in government don't learn that obviously everything we've been doing is wrong financially, then somebody's got to wake up. And we can't run to the taxpayers every single time that we decide we're going to keep spending more and more money. Government stinks at money management. And so we need to get out of that business and get in the business of public safety, educating our kids, doing the maintenance, taking care of the road, doing those things, making sure our water's clean, doing the daily life things that people deal with every day right here. And we don't need to be in all of these other programs that we're in and wasting literally millions upon millions. If we would have gotten on top of this thing back in March, we could have cut $100 million, and in reality, the city never would have really felt it. But we wouldn't do that. No, we had to just go ahead and just keep on spending and then brag about not furloughing or anything else when people all around us are losing their jobs, many of them permanently, and there's still people unemployed right now. I mean, the number of folks that I've met and that I'm and it's just disgusts me that are in the downtown area. I mean, they had saved up their money. They've been going through and they're burning through their savings, and they're like, we don't have much left now. We've about spent every penny we had. One young lady that I was speaking with, she's had to live off her savings. And I said, well, at least you had it. She said, yeah, but that's what I was going to use to buy a house with. So, Nick, the government can't say do as we say and not as we do. That is just the wrong message, and I will never change off of that.
And look, I hear you, and it's awful, that situation you talk about with that woman, and we see these people suffering, and not knowing where they're going to get their next paycheck. I want to go back to, as you said, in March, you made the point that, look, we could have taken action then. And in fairness, let's say we didn't know exactly then how bad COVID would continue on, but I hear what you're talking about there. But when you say $100 million in cuts, I know you don't have a list or something, but Steve, you got to give me something on there. What are you talking about, $100 million? Where were you going to save that by cutting?
All right, $100 million. Nick, you know me better than that. Of course I've got a list.
Okay, give me a list. Give me some.
So the very first thing I would have done, I'd have cut the capital spending in the Barnes Fund. I'd have moved to using land for long-term leases. That generates property taxes, and it also brings in more money for the city. The other thing I would have done, I would have furloughed every employee in Metro, a total of probably 4 weeks over the course of the year, so roughly 1 week per quarter. The exception would have been the police department and the fire department. We're already so short in those areas, we couldn't have done that. And probably the sheriff's department, because I need to understand what that is. But that would have saved $40 million. We have right now, we had about another $20 million we could have cut additionally with MTA, because we got buses basically running empty, and they got more money, federal money, than perhaps any other entity, one entity, I should say, in Metro Nashville. They pretended like we cut it some. We really didn't. We could have cut another $20 million from there. Then you start getting down to the $5 millions and the $4 millions and the 2s. We could have gone all the way down the line and cut $100 million in expenditures, and people in Nashville really wouldn't have felt it. We would have spread the furloughs over a 4-week period for the entire year, and that would have softened the blow on the households of the employees of Metro. Yet all of these things combined would have had $100 million savings. Now, what does that simply mean? That means about 30 plus cents in property tax that we could have lowered it. We could have utilized the wheel tax, and the original plan that I had was going to generate about $35 million a year. We could have utilized that for a 2 to 3 year period until we get completely out of this nightmare. And then I had the provision to sunset that to where that would go away. It was an area that we could legally sunset and say bye-bye. The thing that always bothered me about raising property taxes this extensively is once the government gets their hands on it, they're never going to roll it back. But if we build a sunset into the wheel tax, and it has to be renewed every year, as does the property tax rate. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to not tell the truth on everything. But the wheel tax would have been something that we could have sunsetted and done away with. But it would have helped get us through this crisis. If we would have done those things right there, then we could have landed between 14 and 20% property tax increase that would have remained permanent. And with that, you come to about $332 million. Given the fact that there's now a surplus projected, we actually would have come out much better. Oh, and by the way, we would have built our savings account back up, our rainy day fund. We would have built it up. But nobody wanted to have that conversation. And what scares me now, it's too late to have that conversation on those exact moves. But Nick, I had every bit of it, and they kept denying me, saying, no, that won't work. Because you have to understand the way our charter is set up. You have to get it signed off by the finance department. If they don't sign off on it, then you basically have, quote, an unbalanced budget, even though my budget was balanced. I can assure you the dollars and cents were balanced.
Gotcha. Well, you answered my question. We'll take a break. When we come back, it's our final segment, Steve. We're going to take a few more phone calls. I'm looking at a lot of the comments on Facebook. Not so many questions, but comments. Many people liking what you're saying. We'll take a break and be back with more right after this.